So yesterday we received a letter, and this is the first letter that basically starts the process. All right, so I have a couple of quick updates that I wanted to provide to everybody and just kind of process out loud my frustrations with especially one of them. So, Miss A does have siblings. They are in care, and because they are in different homes, it is in the best interest of these kids to get them together as much as possible, to try to keep those bonds strong. Social media and phones definitely help with that, so that, they can talk frequently whenever they need to. But there's just something about just hanging out, goofing around, joking with each other, or just not doing anything, just being together. Obviously, everyone involved agrees. All of the foster parents, kinship, caseworkers, the court, we all recognize that that is important. And so much so that the court mandated weekly sibling visits because it was becoming really difficult to coordinate between all of the siblings' care providers, So they just made like a mandatory weekly 2-hour visit. Well, again, I mentioned this in the last video. Okay, so we take them to the park, we take them to the library, and we say, okay, go have fun, go be siblings. That's like forced fun, and it's not normal. What John and I have been trying to do is, as much as possible, have one sibling over at a time, basically, and have them stay the night. So they come over on a Friday, they spend the night, and then, around dinner time on Saturday, they go back to their home. Well, even though initially this is what the caseworker wanted, the siblings to get together, now it's just creating so much work, and it's so much headache. And what ends up happening, because Miss A has 3 siblings, we're trying to kind of rotate it and say, okay, this sibling will be this weekend, then the next sibling, and then the next sibling, and then, have a friend over. So we're constantly trying to keep her in contact with her siblings and friends. So this is like an every week thing. Well, we have to jump through so many hoops to have one of our siblings over. So, it's Thursday, and tomorrow we planned on having her youngest sibling over, and we still haven't gotten approval. And so imagine every single week, trying to plan for something and not knowing if for sure it's going to happen. And how do you communicate that to kids without getting their hopes up, or do you just spring it on them on the last minute, like, oh, by the way, your sister's coming over today. Couldn't tell you before because we didn't know for sure, and you have to manage what information you give to your foster kiddo. But yeah, so not only managing that, but I recognize all of the work that has to go in on the side of her care team. So her county caseworker, our agency caseworker, they're having to coordinate with the unit management department of the county to make sure that it's cleared, that the kid can stay the night at the other house. I talked with the caseworker this morning, and she's like, yeah, I might even have to write up a case plan for it. And she's listing all this stuff. And I said, this should not be that hard. This should not be that hard. Come on, people. Like, we know that these kids need to be together. Why are we making it so difficult? So I understand, first time, jump through all the hoops that you need to. But then if the kid is coming back to the same place, the case hasn't changed, it should simply be, one person approving it once the foster parents say, hey, we're getting the kids together for a sleepover. It's going to be this day at this home. One person should be able to approve that. There's no reason why so many hoops should be gone through. Again, we're trying to create like normalcy and try to, not have these kids feel like they're in foster care, like they haven't been ripped out of their homes and put with strangers. We're trying to get there, but yet the system just has so much standing in the way. So really frustrated with that. And honestly, as a foster parent, it's hard to keep going, because it would be so easy for me to say, oh my gosh, this is so much trouble. No more sleepovers. We're just going to have to do something else. And I think that that's why stuff like that stops, and it shouldn't. And so we're going to keep fighting it. I don't care how much of a headache it is. This is what these kids need. So we're going to do it. Then the other update that I have is one that I have to be careful to talk about, because we can't give details on the case. So, we can't talk about why Miss A was removed from her home, really specifics on, it's hard to tell enough. I want to be able to talk about our emotions through the roller coaster of it all. So I do want to share that we received a letter yesterday, and, Miss A has been in care for a while, and the process has been really, really slow. And so she's been with us for 3 months now, and Sawyer is 5 months old. I mean, if that gives you any indication of how much a part of our life she has become in that short time. So yesterday we received a letter, and this is the first letter that basically starts the process. So it has taken us this long because the case was a little difficult. And again, I can't get into why, but it was difficult up until this point. And we're finally at the point where, the parents are going to be given, okay, here's what you have to do for reunification. So we're finally starting that process. But when you read the letter, my heart just dropped, because as much as we support the goal of reunification, and we know that that is the best thing, you get attached to these kids, you love these kids. And the thought that on November 1st, someone can come in and say, everything's good, she's going back home, it's terrifying. It really, really is terrifying. And it just breaks your heart. But I know that I can set that aside, because we want what's best for her, and just talking about her being away from her siblings and how hard it is shouldn't be that hard. So her being home, being with her siblings, being at her school with her friends, that is what is important. And so we can go through that heartbreak. But basically, I see that letter and immediately my heart just sinks, because I'm like, oh my gosh, in a month they could say that she's leaving. And just mentally and emotionally preparing for that, it is hard. But the reality is that these things take time. The case team for these kids has to see that the changes that the parents make are lasting. And so that doesn't happen overnight. People can't really change overnight. And so they need to see certain steps be followed and transition into, I think that what ends up happening is community visits instead of, visits that are supervised, maybe then home visits, maybe then overnight visits at home, weekends, that sort of thing. So they really try to transition back. So what that letter really was saying is we're at the point where we're going to start talking about that plan and what it looks like. And, again, it depends on the timing. I think typically if the parents do everything that they need to do on their end, I've heard that it can be, a 6-month process. So, we're going to talk to Miss A and discuss with her, because, it raises a lot of questions. There's a lot of things up in the air. Oh, do I not care about my, do I not care about my school friends anymore? Do I, just keep, do I just stay to myself for the time being because I'm going to leave? No, we don't want her to do that. So we want her to have a realistic expectation, knowing that there are things that can change. Again, you have to judge, depending on the kid that you have, what their maturity level is, emotionally, mentally, all of those things, to see what level of information is appropriate. And so with Miss A, we answer her questions, we talk to her, and we tell her enough information that is in her best interest. and we hope that we do the right thing, because we're not perfect, and we're not perfect with our kids. So we're just doing our best, and so we're going to try to make those decisions to inform her on what's appropriate. But yeah, getting that letter yesterday, really scary, and I can't imagine how that feels for her, with the unknown, not knowing, what that means, what her parents are going to have to do, if her parents are going to do it, how long it'll take. So many questions for these kids. We're just going to keep focusing on having fun with her, building those relationships, making sure that she's staying on top of school, because she's a really, really great student. This might mean that she can try out for track. She kind of lost interest in gymnastics, but she did express interest in track, and that is a spring sport, and so we are going to encourage her to pursue that, because she could be here for the rest of the year, depending on the timing. So that's where we're at. So I just wanted to provide a quick update on all of those things. If you've been through similar things and you want to share your story, feel free to in the comments. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We're doing more frequent updates, and we even have Miss A's new hair that we're going to be sharing tomorrow. So you'll be able to see that and have us talk about our adventure with hair. So stay tuned for that. I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching as always. Bye.